Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. If you have been watching my last few videos, you'll know that it's been all about stenciling using Pinkfresh Studios products. In my last video, I mentioned that this one would be about stenciling accessories. And what are the accessories? These sweet little butterflies. Pinkfresh Studios small butterflies will be adorning the beautiful floral images found in Anenome Magic. And these two product lines together make for fast and easy cards. If any of these products interest you, links can be found in the description of this YouTube video or on my blog at bonniecarolee.com. I began by adhering the washi tape to a panel of cardstock that measured 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches. The washi tape has a coordinating die set. The washi tape roll is made up of a repeating pattern of a large image followed by a grouping of smaller images. The starting point of my washi tape did not coordinate with the die, so I had to cut the large image and then the 5 smaller images separately. So to remedy that, I cut one large image, and now every cutting after that will coordinate with the order in which they are on the die. And once I had that figured out, I just had to sit back and admire that pile of die-cut images. So gorgeous. Ready for cards. It almost felt a little bit like cheating. It was so quick, but don't worry, I got over it. And now on to the butterflies. This is such a clever way to create multiples. The stamp for all of the butterflies is one stamp, and they will be die cut with one die. I stamped, stenciled, and die cut 2 sets of butterflies, and it took me less than 25 minutes. I don't do anything to prep my new stamps, and so I think that's why I had to stamp it twice. I'm using Simon Says Stamps Intense Black ink on Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. A set of 4 stencils coordinate with the butterfly stamp. I'm working on Waffle Flower Stencil Mat, and I know I've mentioned it a lot lately because I really love it. Just 1 or 2 pieces of tape and everything holds in place. It wasn't that long ago when I was doing all of my stenciling on my glass media mat. Well, let me tell you, things were really slipping and sliding. This has made a big difference for me. The other thing that I'm doing that has improved my stenciling experiences is using a blending brush instead of the blending tool. When using a blending tool, I found that sometimes the stencil would bunch up, but with the blending brush, you're coming at it straight from the top, and so it's a little bit different. All of my stenciling is being done with Simon Says Stamps Positively Saturated inks. For this first set of butterflies, I'm working with Trio 1. This set of inks is made up of 3 tones of blue. For the first 3 stencils, I'm applying in order from lightest to darkest, Seafoam, Surf, and Ocean. Admittedly, this takes a little bit longer than the washi tape images, but really, stenciling is a fast way to color. And I'm just finishing up with my 3rd stencil and the color Ocean, and I'm going to move on to my 4th stencil, and I'm going to be applying a black ink. There are different shades of black, and I wanted this black to be very black, so I decided to use Simon Says Stamps Intense Black ink. This hybrid ink applied very nicely using a blending brush. I had a little bit of a concern about how it might impact the brush. The bristles were stained, but it doesn't matter what ink you use, they all will stain. But more importantly, the texture of the bristles was unchanged. I did clean the brush right after I finished using it though, which I don't typically do with my blending brushes. the second set of butterflies, I used Trio 3 and applied the inks Lemonade, Sunbeam, and Citron. I just love how that little bit of black just makes those butterflies pop. I want to emboss my butterflies. The positively saturated inks will need a bit of drying time. I've left my stamp in my MISTI ready to go, but in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and prepare all of my cards. This first card is an A2 size and has been matted with black cardstock. Using the largest die in Pinkfresh Studios braided oval die set, I've cut white cardstock and stacked it on a foam oval. Foam was cut using the same die that was used to cut the washi tape images. All of those images were stacked. The floral images that I'm going to be using have just been placed on the oval so that I can position the sentiment. The card is then placed in the stamping platform, and I stamp the sentiment using Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. This sentiment is from Pinkfresh Studios' Anenome Magic stamp set. The floral images are adhered to the oval frame. For the second card, I'm using the two largest dies in Pinkfresh Studios' Slim Ornate Banner. The smaller of the two dies was used to cut white cardstock, and additional texture was added by running it through the die cutter with Pinkfresh Studios stitched plaid die. The largest of the images was adhered to the top of the panel and one of the sprays to the bottom. Because all the floral images are stacked on foam, I am leaving them under some weight for just a few minutes after I adhere them to their panels. Where the large image overhangs the black cardstock, it is trimmed off. The panel is then adhered to a card base that measures 8 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. For the sentiment, I'm using Simon Says Stamp's Happy Birthday Brush script. The script portion has been die cut from matte gold cardstock, and the shadow die cut from black cardstock and foam. And that completes stage 1 in card 2. This next card will be A2 size 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and I'm using Pinkfresh Studios' Fancy Oval Frame. This die produces 2 die cuts, the frame and the oval. The die was used to cut both white cardstock and sheet foam. The cardstock frame is mounted on the foam die cut. 2 of the sprays will be adhered to the oval. These are the only 2 florals that have not been mounted on foam. The card base is matted with black cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inches. Glue is applied to both the outside and inside edges of the frame, avoiding that dot detail. The oval panel is inserted into the frame. Simon Says Stamp Script Hello was used to die cut both matte gold cardstock and foam. To align the sentiment easily to the foam die cut, the foam is left in its backing. The foam die cut has an impression which makes it very easy to stack the cardstock one. This is set aside to dry completely before the excess foam is removed. In roughly 10 or 15 minutes, the glue is dry and the sentiment is ready to be removed and adhered to the card front. For this slim line, I'm starting off with a panel of black cardstock that measures 8 1/4 by 3 1/4 inches. To create a floral background, I'm going to position 2 of the larger images and then fill in with some of the smaller ones. After everything is adhered to the card, then I will trim off all the overhanging pieces. Because everything is foam bagged, it can easily slip out of position, so I give it a little bit of drying time before I start trimming. To ensure that the cut edges are going to be flush with the panel, I trim from the back, pushing my blade right up against the panel's edge. I'll use a few of the cut-off pieces to help fill in some areas of the panel. I'm using the largest die from Pinkfresh's Slim Stitch Scallop Rectangles. This die produces a double scalloped frame. I'll be using just the outside one and it will be adhered to my panel. Then on it goes to a black cardstock card base that measures 3 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. I'll be using Simon Says Stamp's Big Scripty Hugs for the sentiment. The shadow die was used to cut both black cardstock and black foam and they were stacked. The script was die cut from matte gold cardstock. And I have a little bit too much adhesive, so I just tap it off before I put it onto the shadow die cut. And I was kind of going back and forth trying to decide where I was going to place the sentiment, and in the end I put it in the center. For this next card, I'm also going to be using the Slim Stitch Scalloped Rectangles. The shadow die from Simon Says Stamp Let's Connect was cut from both foam and black cardstock and stacked. The lettering was die cut from matte gold cardstock. The panel was adhered to a card base that again measures 8 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I'm going to be using both of the frames that are produced from this die set. The black and white scheme was a little bit too much, so I ended up cutting 2 more black inside scallop frames and stacking them together to create a little bit of dimension on that inside edge. First, the panel was adhered to the card base, and then the outside scalloped frame was adhered around it. It was finished up with a couple of the corner florals added to the inside scalloped frame and the sentiment attached. After putting all those cards together, the ink on those butterflies is definitely dry. I apply the anti-static powder and then ink up the stamp with Versamark. I use the stamping tool to apply pressure across the panel. The panel is coated with gold embossing powder. The fine lines of gold look beautiful with the stenciling. The die lines up easily with the butterflies, and one pass through the die cutter and it's done. To add a little bit of dimension, the butterflies are shaped by hand and glue applied just to the body of the butterfly. I did go in afterwards and tuck in some tiny foam squares under the wings so that they would be nice and stable. Studio Cash's Gold Fever confetti was used to embellish the cards. And then out comes the Nouveau Drops. Morning Dew is added to all of the confetti. When it dries, it is clear and it really enhances them. Black Nouveau Drops are added to the spots on the butterflies. Nouveau Glitter Drops White Blizzard is added to the berries which are found on the large floral images. And that completes this set of 5 cards featuring Pinkfresh Studios small butterflies and Anenome magic. Stenciled butterflies and washi tape florals come together to make beautiful cards that are quick and easy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.